wanted to die, to be honest. Pain was so bad and so unrelenting. Like when you wake up in the morning, the first thing that hits you is a wave of pain. And most people don't realize it, but until something like this happens to you, you realize that your spine is the center pole of a tent, really. Everything hangs off of it. If something goes wrong with it, your life is a mess because you just start coming apart in all different directions. So, yeah, it's a pretty important piece of skeleton, that spine. I was riding a horse I called Whiskey. He got angry, and we were riding in pitch dark at the time, still way up in the mountains, and suddenly he dropped his head, stripped the reins out of my hand, and he took off bucking down the trail. At about the fourth buck, I thought, I'm going to come off this horse and it's going to hurt. Little did I know how badly it was going to hurt. And I was probably traveling on this horse about 25 or 30 miles an hour when he finally threw me, and I hit this log and it caught me up under the left arm, and I could feel my ribs go first and I could hear them, and that's just almost instantaneously after my whole chest collapsed on my left side. All the ribs were broken except for the two smaller ones, I think. But then the log hit my spine and I could feel my back break. I could actually hear it and feel it. And the pain was unlike any pain I've ever, it was indescribable. It was just the sort of pain you can only imagine until you've experienced it. That was the point at which my journey through chronic pain really began. At first the pain receded, but then it started to come back and it got worse and worse. And no amount of opioids seemed to be able to control the pain. As time went on, whenever I used my back or my body in any way almost, I would get quite severe pain. And that only got worse and worse. I began to feel like the world was closing in on me. I began to see other doctors just to try to see if there was anything else I could do, and all of them just kept prescribing opioids. They did a microsurgical fusion, right. And where they rasped the bone surfaces off one vertebra to the next and irritate them, and so that they then auto-fuse or fuse themselves, right. Without steel. Right. And I thought that was a good thing when it was offered, and they even described it as an outpatient procedure. Okay. What? Well, they sent me home after the next day, but the next 3 weeks I was out of my mind with pain. It was as bad as when I came off my horse that night. And it was sustained. It was so bad that I have always been a very hopeful person and very positive, but by now, I mean, 6 years had gone by and I was in worse pain than I'd ever been. By now, I'd seen all these other surgeons, and every one of them suggested a surgery, right. To address my pain. Right. And now we're talking about pain that I wanted to kill myself over. I mean, I can remember 3 separate times when I looked at the Norco bottles by my bed, and I actually reached for them one night to try to end my life. In 2014, I finally was so desperate, I was ready to consider surgery again. So I went to see a doctor in Spokane, Washington, and he breezed into the office, and I was with a friend, and he said, well, I've looked at your images, and he said, nothing's going to, he said, you don't have, your back's been through a lot, and he said, nothing is really going to fix your back except for fairly radical procedures. He said it, I call the blue plate special. He described a surgery where 2 doctors would work on me for up to 2 days, a surgery that would last up to 2 days. One would go in from the front, the other one from the back, and they would break my spine in 2 places, remove the hardware, the ladder of steel that's fused into my spine, then go into my spinal canal and clean out the stenoses they found there, and also some nerve root canals at L4, 5, and 6, I think, that had stenosis. And then they were going to fuse me from my neck to my pelvis. And he said all this with such a, he reminded me of a used car salesman, frankly. I hate to say it, but he was just so light and airy about all this. And God, and he threw in that he'd been a GM engineer before he became an orthopedic surgeon, on whatever relevance that had. But anyway, I was so, but he was effective, and I thought, well, where do I sign? This is not, I have no other options. I have to do this. But then something told me to wait. I had to think about this. So I said, I have to think about this a little bit. And we walked to your office, and I think you said, well, I've looked at your images, and yes, your back's been through a lot, but he said, I'm not going to offer you surgery. And I went, what? I can remember, I don't know what I said exactly, but my mind said, what? You're not going to offer me surgery? Well, that to me was almost a death knell. And I thought, my God, if he's not going to operate on me, I am condemned to this forever unless I end it. I said, well, something like, well, what can I do? And what's the alternative? And you said, well, and this is all in a very few minutes of conversation. And you said, if I remember right, you said something like, well, I have another program called the DOC program, Direct Your Own Care program. And you said one of the foundation activities in that program is something we call expressive writing. And I said, well, what's expressive writing? And I wanted to say, it sounded like a kindergarten drill all of a sudden. Expressive writing. And you told me at the time, you said, your back's been through a lot, but I don't see anything in the image that would suggest that a surgery will fix your pain. And I'm thinking, my God, what will? And so you're offering me this little kindergarten drill, I'm thinking. And I remember saying to you, I don't know why you didn't throw me out of your office, but I said, this sounds like snake oil to me. And you said something, this might be my memory, but I think you said something like, well, you can always choose surgery. And I'm thinking, yeah, being filleted like a salmon, if you want it. But what have you got to lose by trying this? I don't think our visit lasted more than 20 minutes, and we left the office. And my friend and I drove down the coast from Seattle and found our way to a beach that night. I thought, well, why not try this? So that night I sat down for 15 minutes and I wrote down my thoughts, and they were all negative. I was so sure that this wasn't going to work, I have to tell you. I'm a trained scientist. I'm supposed to be able to think critically. I'm suspicious by nature and by training and education, because that's, you're supposed to have good hard data before you accept anything for fact. And so I didn't expect this to work at all. And when I woke up the next morning, I was, as always, I was ready for that shot of pain upon opening my eyes. And when I opened my eyes that morning, there wasn't that lightning bolt of pain. And I thought, this is different and it's more tolerable. And then I got up and I started moving around, and there was a lot less pain moving around. And as the day wore on, I felt better and better. And the afternoon, I was lying on the beach on my head on a piece of driftwood, and I said to my friend, I said, my God, I can feel this, it's like this curtain of pain is lifting. I wrote that morning again, I wrote the next night. Anyway, by the second day, midway through the afternoon, I would say that I was 85% pain-free. And I have not looked back since then. Well, I guess it's important to pause and say, what would my life be like had I not had that, had I had that blue plate special? Right. I wouldn't be riding horses anymore. I wouldn't be chainsawing wood. I wouldn't be doing most of the things I'd be doing. I'd probably be in a chair, getting stiffer and stiffer and less functional, and more depressed, and I might not even be here. I'm functioning probably at 90 to 95% of what I was before I ever had my accident. I do all kinds of things now. I chainsaw wood, I split wood, I carry wood. I live on a 700-acre wildlife sanctuary that used to be an old ranch, so there's a lot of physical labor to do. Right. And I do it all. And I don't do it as well or as intensely as I used to, but I'm now 73, and I think I'm doing pretty well.